Welcome to Elevated Life, Real Wellness and Transformation podcast, where we walk alongside the internally driven individual as they transform their life through wellness, movement, mindset, and personal responsibility. If that's you, you're in the right place. Let's jump in.
No.
Today, we're going to get into a new trend that we're seeing, especially on Instagram, of skinny talk.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I think it originated on TikTok, but Instagram influencers it's crossed social media boundaries, I guess. And I don't know if it's new or if it's old, because when I did some research, it was honestly, I think the genesis of it was when GLP-1s became really, everyone's on Ozempic or whatever. And I think that's
So when all of a sudden it wasn't cool to be fat anymore.
Yeah, when big at any size lost its, or not big at any size, sorry, healthy at any size or body positivity, right? When that pendulum swung the other direction and the big spokespeople for body positivity then started using Ozempic, then all of a sudden this skinny talk, and I could be totally wrong. I'm just thinking about how it coincided with the Ozempic crowd.
That's really when you started to notice it on social media.
I started noticing it like, I don't know, 2 months ago when I was like, what? This is a thing? And I just kind of whatevered it. And then it started popping up more. And then I started seeing, and at first I was just seeing creators come out against skinny talk, right? And I was like, okay, cool. And then I started seeing some of the creators that were promoting skinny talk, and it was a massive trigger for me. Like it just was, because I thought, what are we doing? What are we doing? And basically it was, if you really want to succeed in life, you need to be skinny and skinny, 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 and all this skinny shit.
Yeah.
And mostly from young women in their early 20s talking about how, skinny is back and this is what you need to do to be skinny. And it was basically, eat nothing and don't lift weights, because lifting weights adds mass to your body. And you don't want that look. You want the long, lean Pilates, even more emaciated than Pilates look,
Yeah.
right?
So for those of you listening that are in our age demographic and older, we're talking skinnies like 90s skinny.
Yeah, I mean, here's what it's anorexia. It's anorexia, bulimia. I don't think bulimia is cool anymore. I could be wrong, right? Like bulimia is when you were puking, you were binging and puking up your food. And anorexia is just eating at a severe caloric deficit, starvation. A lot of people call it, you say they're fasting, when it's code for I'm, participating in anorexia.
Yeah.
It's just been coined a lot of different ways, or packaged, communicated a lot of different ways so that it's more palatable, right? So skinny talk is just Gen X's version of anorexia. And I started thinking about it, and I thought, I have a lot to say about this because I have a history with anorexia. And so I thought, I need to tell this story, because if you've listened to the podcast for any amount of time, I've told little snippets of my weight loss journey or my journey to health, whatever you want to call it. But I've never put it all together. And as I was putting it all together, I realized I actually had never even put it all together in my own life. everything has been very compartmentalized in my life because that's how I've dealt with a lot of shit. So I actually had to sit down for this podcast and say, okay, I'm going to talk about this. I'm going to talk about what anorexia/skinny talk looks like as you age, what happens to your body if you participate in this behavior. And yeah, and had to basically go back in my mind and rewrite, everything down. And it was really mind blowing that I had never, ever done that.
Yeah, just as a quick aside, it was really fascinating for me as Jonna was going through this because I had heard basically every chunk of this
Every
story, but
compartmentalization.
yeah, really highlighting what compartmentalization can really do in your head because it was oh yeah, and that led, this phase, this chunk led directly into this chunk that led directly into this chunk. Like, holy shit, that all of a sudden that was 15 years. And then you add on more and more. So it was really just a testament to what, even if you recognize the compartmentalization, what it really does in your own head and how important it is to put all that stuff together at some point, when you're ready to do that, put it all together and really understand what the totality of whatever that might be. In this case, for you, it was the anorexia eating journey.
Yeah. And so we're going to jump into this and I want to share it because number one, I think it's a, insane story, but also for the people who may be participating in Anorexia 2.0 skinny talk or parents that are also battling, with their kids and what that looks like. And, yeah, and just basically tell my story. So we're going to jump right into it. And I wrote all this down, you guys, like pen and paper style, because I needed to. So I think that the first like body awareness in terms of fatness in my mind that I can remember happened right around second grade. And just noticing like my body, right? And I don't know if I was called fat in second grade or not, but I do know that that's when I started becoming insecure. I don't know. I don't remember what caused that insecurity. Of course, I had a lot of other things happening in my life around second grade. So, who knows? Oh, did you see that bug?
Did.
Where did it go? Because it buzzed right by my ear.
Got it. It hit the wall and fell down.
Oh my gosh. Ooh. All right, let's get back on track. So I actually started dieting around 10 years of age. And I remember in fifth grade, there were two boys, Billy someone and Ricky someone, who called me fat, right? And I was an angry child for several different reasons. But when these boys started calling me fat, I was the child that went after them physically. Okay. I wasn't like the quiet person. So I would jump across desks and try to punch them and all the things. So the dieting was like my mom actually bought me a diet, like a food, like what would be considered Nutrisystem now. It was some kind of prepared food and you got this, and that. And I was doing it with my aunt, her younger sister that was younger than me. And I almost feel now looking back that I was like supposed to, maybe it was so she wouldn't feel bad. Like I was the person that was going to do it too, so that two people were doing it, right? I'm not 100% sure, but as I look back, and that morphed into things like the cabbage soup diet, Slim Fast. Now, this was all before the age of 15. Okay. So I'm full on diet culture, by the time I'm pretty much 10, 11 years old. And, again, when I went into middle school, there was another group of boys that would call me fat and they would call me Whaler. And I would respond the exact same way that I did with the boys in 5th grade. I would go after them and try to beat the shit out of them. That
Mhm.
was the way that I was going to handle it. And I never, as I was reliving these stories in my head, I was like, I don't feel like I'm fat. Like, okay, whatever. But this is in late 80s, early 90s. Fat then is very different than what is considered fat now, right? So, but my way of dealing with it was absolute lash out, and I know that that just fed their excitement to, whatever, provoke me,
Sure, because
right?
that's just how it's going to be in middle school anyway. You've got all the other goofiness of middle school
So
going
true.
on,
So
and
true.
you've already got it in your head,
Yeah.
regardless of how you visually see yourself. At this point, you have it in your head that you're fat,
Oh, yeah,
because
body dysmorphia started for me at a very young age.
skinny people don't go on diets.
Right. Yeah, yeah, you're right. So then that morphed into around the age of 15 in high school. And we had this thing in high school called slam books, right? And this would be like today's version of social media bullying, where, your group of so called friends would put together this slam book, and it would be like, who has the worst acne? Who has the ugliest hair? Who's the fattest? Well, Jonna came in as the fattest,
Okay,
right?
so this slam book was amongst your friends about your friends,
Yeah.
not
Really,
not
really
about other
just
people.
yeah, there were some other people in it too, and mind you, this is a lot of decades ago, so I don't remember all of the
Sure, of
details, but
course.
that is something that I remember. And so what happened at 15 is I found a 3-day diet, okay? And basically it was, cottage cheese, an apple, tuna, and like a half a scoop of ice cream. Okay, that was like the little, okay? So I started this diet, and I really enjoyed body movement. I've always been into athletics. And so, I started doing like an aerobics show on Fox, the Laud, and I would do this aerobics show. And I got really into Cindy Crawford workout and the Thigh Master and all the things, right, that Gen X got into. Um, and I lost about 30 pounds doing that 3-day diet for a long time, right? But what happened is I started restricting even outside of those of that perimeter of what you were allotted per day. And obviously noticed, when you're 15 and you lose 30 pounds, that's a big deal, a really big deal. And I really liked it. And so unfortunately, what happens when you participate in an extreme calorie deficit eating for well over a year, okay? You at some point are going to get hungry again, and you're not going to want to diet for the rest of your life. And so I started eating food again, just a normal range of food, but I always had food issues. Okay. So I'm not going to pretend like I didn't have food issues. I would do this starve, 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 eat, and then starve, 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 eat. But I gained basically most of it back by my senior year. But that was also like, I didn't really care. I was lifting weights then, and I really enjoyed that, and it was fine. However, then I graduated from high school and I moved to Maui. Okay, so this is the land of two-piece bikinis. And so again, I started the starvation. That was the only way that I knew how to lose weight, right? You hear it all the time, eat in a calorie deficit. We still hear it today. Eat in a calorie deficit. And so that's what I did. And I was able to lose a ton of weight. I don't know. I wasn't weighing myself, but it was very thin for quite some time. And then I got married and I got pregnant with my first baby. And for the first time, and I can still remember the feeling of, okay, I'm fucking pregnant. I can eat. I do not have to diet. Like, this was so huge to me. And so when I was pregnant with Alexa, I just ate like a normal person, right? I wasn't like massively consuming, but I was pregnant. And back then they told you when you were pregnant, you shouldn't do exercise, right? We know that's a lie. But, so I was like, okay, great. I'm married. I'm pregnant. For the first time in my entire life, I don't freaking care. And during that pregnancy, I gained between 70 and 80 pounds. That's a huge gain. Now, at the time, I didn't know this. Now I know that my metabolism obviously was completely shutting down, and I was going to pack on the weight because your body's like, oh, yay, we're not in famine anymore. We've been in famine for a decade and on and off, and now we're not. And so packed on the weight.
And just to jump in here real quick, because I think this is going to be a theme throughout. Just to clarify, when you were pregnant with Lex and you said you started eating again, that was still Whole Foods.
No. I had no food literacy then, right? So it was just, I always cooked good, but it was like a meat. Yes, there was prepackaged stuff. I was raised with a salad every night at dinner, so I continued that in my adult life. But it certainly wasn't, really good. And I was eating fast food because that's what you do. You eat fast food. I hadn't learned anything about nutrition at this point.
So at that point, it would be what if we can get in the Wayback Machine and think of what kind of the standard American diet
For sure.
in the 90s would have been. Okay.
Standard American diet.
Okay.
So, after I had Alexa, I lost like 30 or 40 pounds. But I was so in my momness, I'm not trying to diet then. I'm breastfeeding. I get pregnant with Olivia, my second born, when Alexa was 10 months old. And boom, gained 50 pounds with that pregnancy. After I had her, Olivia, I was like, okay, I need to deal with all this weight that I just gained. I don't like it. So I joined the gym on Maui and I started doing aerobics and again started the extreme calorie, not eating anything. And then the Atkins diet came around and I was like, glory, hallelujah. You can eat 50 pounds of cheese and meat and I don't have to like eat literally an apple to lose weight. And so I did the Atkins diet, but I could never, 10 pounds is all I could ever lose. And then I would just break out in a rash. And part of that is because it's very cheese heavy. If you already have fungus and parasites going on in your body and you dump a bunch of cheese on it, it's like pouring gasoline on a fire. I didn't know that at the time. That's when I first kind of started to learn about fungus and a little bit about that. And I knew that that wasn't going to work for me. And so I tried this calorie, eat nothing, back and forth, got pregnant with my third child and gained 50 pounds during pregnancy. And I got down, I was okay-ish. I can't remember the actual number where I got after Olivia, got pregnant with Emma, gained the weight, and then I was busy with 3 kids after that. But I don't believe I tried to lose weight between Emma and Granger because I packed on the pounds. When I started my 4th pregnancy, it was the heaviest that I had ever been going into a pregnancy. And I was actually scared. Like that part scared me. It was also my most unhealthy pregnancy because I think I ended that pregnancy at like 270 pounds, right? And I knew that during that pregnancy, again, I was not food literate at all at that time. I was like, after I have this kid, I just, this has to stop. Like, I can't do this excess weight anymore. So during that pregnancy, I bought 3 books And you guys have heard this story before. I bought the South Beach Diet book. It's the 1 meal a day book, but now it's called OMAD because they like to make it sound all.
No.
It was something else then. Like, hey, fatty, only eat once a day. You lose weight, but that wasn't the day, right? It was written by 2 doctors. And then I bought that Natural Cures book that I've talked about in the past off of an infomercial. And I read all 3 of them, tried South Beach Diet, failed, tried only eat 1 meal a day or a window. And you want to talk about, for someone who has already had binge purge anorexia issues, so it was like you could eat from like 2 to 4, some shit like that. It's like the whole day stops because I get to eat for 2 hours, right? And then you're just like, whoa,
I'm going to
stuff.
take every minute of that 2 hours.
Pretty much. And so then that obviously didn't work. And I read and this was also the time, guys, that, between my 3rd and 4th baby, when I really started getting panic attacks, migraines, all the things because I had become a Diet Coke junkie and fast food and all of the things. So I was having a lot of other problems there. So when I read this Natural Cures book, it was basically, you got to eat whole foods. These are what are in food, aspartame, MSG. So I did the whole throw everything out of my pantry, went to the health food store, restocked everything, and really started learning about nutrition. And that was really good. And I was able to lose like between 30 and 50 pounds just eating whole foods. And I was walking, I had 4 kids. I didn't, in my head, right? Didn't have time to whatever. And I knew nothing about weightlifting. That wasn't even something that was a thing. And after I had Granger, that's when we moved from Maui to the mainland to Oregon. And during that time, that's when I started researching David Wolfe and raw foodism and things of that nature.
Hey friends, if you're getting something out of this, connect with us on our social media platforms. We're at CJ Elevated Life _ on Instagram and TikTok, and CJ Elevated Life on Facebook and X. We're answering DMs, sharing daily content, and building community with people ready for real transformation. For now, hit subscribe wherever you're listening, Apple, Spotify, YouTube. We drop 2 new episodes every week. And if this episode resonates, share it. That's how we reach more people who are ready for change. You can also find everything at cjelevatedlife.com. All right, let's keep going.
And so January 1st of 2006, because we moved to the mainland in 2005, I went raw, right? And I thought that that was a really good natural progression because I was stoked about the whole foods thing. And within David Wolfe's book and with other detox, I really got into like detoxification and just health in general. I was like, okay, I'm going to go raw. I am going to jump on my trampoline because that's when I started learning about the lymphatic system. I'm going to do Pilates because I really, really liked it. And I'm going to walk. And I lost between 60 and 80 pounds, right? Doing that. And I had to stop being raw after about 6 months because my hair started falling out and I was lightheaded all the time. And the other thing, going back to high school, I didn't have a period for like a year and a half because of this severe calorie deficit, right? This is what happens to you. This also happened to me when I went raw. But I just thought, no big deal. It is a big deal, ladies. Like, that's a big deal. So anyway, I again used raw foodism as I'm just on a fast, right? When really it was just, as we can see, just all these years, guys, of severe calorie deficit, then ballooning in weight. Severe calorie deficit, ballooning in weight. This has been like my theme my entire life. All right. So then we after Granger's born, I was able to maintain that pretty well. After I came back from being raw and I started adding just like some whole foods, I did regain like 20 pounds, but I was okay with that because I had, I'd gotten pretty, emaciated, I guess. And it's like, okay, that's okay. And then my last pregnancy, then I got pregnant with Eve. And I was raw during the first 5 months of my pregnancy with Eve. And, jumping on my trampoline, doing Pilates, all the things, added protein and other sources the last 4 months, and still gained 50 pounds during that pregnancy. But I was really excited because when my last weigh-in, when I gave birth to her, I was 200 pounds. That was the lightest that I'd ever been, at the end of a pregnancy. It was like, oh my gosh, okay. In fact, I think it was like even 198. I can't remember for sure, but I was just stoked that it was like not over 200 pounds. And the pregnancy was easy. The birth was easy. It was just like, yeah, it was nice compared to the other births and pregnancies. So I lost 25 pounds when I get, after I delivered Eve and, after the first 3 months or whatever. And I was cool with that. And then we moved to, and I was able to maintain that because I gave birth to Eve in 2008. And then we moved to Washington State in 2012. And that was really hard. And we homesteaded. So we moved here in July 2012. And we homesteaded that summer, built a cabin, did all the things. A lot of shit went down. And I chopped copious amounts of wood that summer and probably lost like 25 pounds doing that, right? And then that winter of 2013, 2012, I packed on at least 90 pounds in one winter from seriously October to May. And this was eating whole foods, but I was cooking because I was like, I am up on this mountain. I can't get down unless I jump on a snowmobile for 3 miles. And this did not work out the way that I thought it was in my head. And I'm just going to cook. Like I knew exactly what I was doing. You guys have heard this story before. And I didn't care. I didn't care because it was the only thing that was really bringing me comfort. And so that's what I decided to do. And then we moved to Tonasket the May of 2013 and homesteaded again. And during that summer, I was able to lose like 40 pounds of what I had gained. And then, let's see, let me look at my notes. So
real quick, in that one.
Yeah, in that one. Do you notice a theme, guys? This is insane to me, is I've strung just that part of my story from 10 to, I don't even know my age, right? Like 35, maybe, I'm not sure. I've already lost and gained like 500 pounds at this point. I mean, I didn't do the math, but as I'm like, okay, lose 30, gain 40, lose 50, gain 20. Like, it's just bonkers.
The last couple times then, because you attributed the weight loss at one point to chopping a bunch of wood.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next summer, I'm assuming it was something similar because you were homesteading again, so
building a house.
Yeah. So in either of those time periods, were you consciously trying to lose weight, or did it seem like, your intake, so to speak, your food was basically the same? You were just very active.
No. I I was always trying to starve myself skinny. Okay. And then how it works is it's like, okay, I'm gonna do a really good job starving myself for a week, and then you just get freaking hungry. Obviously, I've never been a sedentary person. I've always been very busy and active, even at my, biggest. I like to move. Um, so I'd always try to control it with food. And so it would be, like I said, like a week of, okay, I only ate this week 3 chicken breasts and 5 apples and, whatever. And then the next week, I was ravenous. So then it was like I'm eating breakfast with the kids. I'm eating 3 meals a day for a week. Then guilt. Then guilt and shame. You don't deserve to eat because you are fucking huge. And so you need to starve yourself. Like this, this doesn't get to be your life. You don't get to eat like a normal person. You don't. And I didn't know at the time, the reason why I was having all these massive fluctuations is because my body has been in famine, starvation, and then hurry up, we need to prepare for the next famine. Right? And it wasn't thinking that at 15, but it definitely by the time you're 35, that's what it's thinking because it has code, right? That it's reading. And it's like, oh, here we go. We are eating food. So we need to pack it on because next month we're going to go back to an apple and a berry. So that's basically, and that is what's happening with Skinny Talk right now. Right. And I'll finish this story and then we'll get into what's going to happen to these poor young ladies. Because what they think is that they're going to be like, okay, I'm just going to get skinny and then I'm going to be fine. I'm going to be able to eat normal again. Wrong. It is so wrong. So, anyway, between the years of like 2014 and 2021, I lost and gained the same 20 to 60 pounds, probably 5 times. And I was coaching during that time. I remember just feeling like shit and guilty because I'm like, come on, girls, you got to eat healthy. And literally, I was eating healthy. I had food knowledge, right? I was only eating whole foods, but I'm still 60, 70 pounds overweight. And it just bugged me so much. So when I got the head coaching job, I did the same thing that I always do: starve, starve, starve. And I walked though, like intensely all the time. And I was able to lose, well, however many pounds, guys. I mean, you see the pattern, right? And then I got fired from coaching and I was like, fuck this shit. And guess what I did? I gained weight again. And I think I probably gained 40 pounds. And then I was like, trying to walk again. And in this state of like, I am so tired of myself. I'm so sick of this cycle. I don't know how to break it. I don't know what I'm doing. I literally have tried every single thing. Nothing works for me. I'm broken. Which I kind of was. Like my metabolism was legitimately broken. But I remember praying and just being like, God, please fix me. Why can't I eat just like normal? I can't eat like a normal person without literally gaining weight on the daily. I either had to be under 1,000 calories or I was gaining weight. And I had been toying, you guys know this story, with joining the gym for like 2 years. And finally I was like, okay, fine, I'm going to join the gym. And I joined the gym up in Oroville. And one of my drives up there, I listened to a Mind Pump podcast. This was 3 men who talked about lifting weights. And I remember thinking, what do these friggin' dudes know about a 42-year-old woman who literally can't lose weight. Like I'm not going to lose weight. And the podcast I listened to it was something like Why Women in Their 40s Need to Lift Weights. And it literally blew my mind. And I remember listening and I sat back and I thought, at this point, I don't have any more options. I've exhausted every diet, literally, you name the diet online, and I had over 30 years, whatever, participated in this diet. Even like the master cleanse, you guys, right? You put cayenne pepper and blah. Okay, I'm going to do that for a week. All the things. And exercise, I knew at that time, was just cardio, cardio, cardio. And yes, I could lift weights, but I'm not trying to be a bodybuilder. I only thought that like bodybuilders lifted weights, right? And so as they were talking about what it does to the body, lifting weights and all the things, I thought, okay, I don't have any other choice. I'm already going to the gym and doing curls to press and whatever I was doing with Pam and Amber. I'm going to dive in hard. I'm going to dive in hard because at this point I don't have any other option. I had kind of resolved that I was just going to be that size for the rest of my life because God wanted me to be fat for whatever reason. But I thought, okay, this is it. This is the last thing I'm trying because I've been trying for 35 years at that point, right? This food noise in my head, this body dysmorphia, all of the things, 35 years, sick and tired of it. This is it. And I jumped in like no one's business. And that was 2021, early 2021. And I decided I had a couple of rules for myself. Well, first of all, I listened to Mind Pump literally every day because I thought, okay, they know what they're talking about. If I'm going to learn how to lift and navigate the gym, they've been doing it for 25, 30 years at that point, probably 25. They know what they're talking about. They seemed very compassionate for women. It wasn't just like the fitness influencer who's like, you're fat because you eat too much and, And so I dove in and I decided you're going 5 days a week. You are not going to compare yourself to other people. That is not going to happen because I had lived in that comparison world forever and it's exhausting, right? So, if you're busy comparing your body to everyone else's for 30 plus years, that just gets old. So you're not going to compare yourself. You're just going to trust this process because these three dudes say that's what you have to do. It's going to take longer, but apparently my something's wrong with my metabolism. So I'm going to go ahead and, just trust this process. And that's what I did. And so I worked out 5 days a week for probably a year. And also, I've talked about this. Nathan, the owner of the warehouse, the gym that I went to, very supportive, very welcoming. It was just such a great environment that I felt safe there and at home as time went by. And then the weight started falling off, right? And I was starting to build muscle. And that feeling of seeing your muscles, like for the first time, I was like, and I felt strong and empowered. And then he asked me if I wanted to teach a class. And I had done circuit training with the athletes that I had trained. And I was like, yeah, I'll teach this class. And that was in 2022. And I started teaching the class. And then at the end of 2022, I had people at the gym coming up to me and asking me if I would train. And ultimately, I was like, well, first I was like, no, I'm not a personal trainer. I still had weight to lose, you guys. Like, I still had a bunch, but they didn't care. They were like, we see how hard you work. We want to train with you. I'm like, I had no plan on being a personal trainer. But then because so many people asked, I decided, you know what, I'm going to get certified. And so I went ahead and did that. And you guys know the rest of the story. Most of you opened up Elevated Fitness in 2023, April, and opened my own gym because I wanted to teach other women how to lift weights because finally I found something that worked. Now, at that point, it had only worked for like a year and a half. Now we're sitting at 2026. I have lost additional body fat over the years of being a personal trainer and prioritizing this lifestyle. But I didn't know that. Let me go back because my nutrition while I was lifting was basically very limited carbs. Maybe randomly I'd have some homegrown potatoes or some yams. I eliminated sugar except for chocolate every night. I did not stop that. And prioritized protein. And that felt really good. And through that time, I was able to start eating food again, right? Which was huge. I could never, now I think my maintenance calories are about 2,000. That's a whole 1,000 more than what I have ever been able to eat. And so this is why I am so passionate about lifting weights, especially for those people that have battled anorexia, body dysmorphia, all the things in the past, like the calorie restriction. So in terms of TikTok, right, and this new skinny talk, what you think you're going to do at 20, you don't get away from that food noise. You don't get away from thinking that you're not fat. You don't. So you go on the exact same cycle that I went on. And the body, when you decide to get hungry again after you do your skinny talk, you're going to pack on the pounds very rapidly and quickly. And then the only way that you're going to know how to lose the weight is to do the exact same thing you did before, but your body is smart and it adapts. So maybe you ate 1,000 calories a day before, but this time it's going to be 800. Next time it's going to be 400. And then pretty soon you're not eating. You're not eating. And that's how it just rolls through the decades. Decades I dealt with this. And guess what? Lifting heavy weights is the only thing that healed my metabolism so that I could eat like a normal person. So why not just start with lifting the heavy weights now? Bypass all of the anorexia / skinny talk bullshit and start lifting so that you can eat because you are going to get hungry. There's going to be a point, either that or you're going to die, right? That's the two ways out of, severe anorexia. So, yeah. Do you have questions? Do you have any questions for me?
I think just a couple points that are worth making, and kind of starting with the end and working backwards. I think it's important to note that you have now been lifting heavy weights for 3, 4, 5 years.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know for those of you watching the podcast, you can kind of see Jonna, but, and probably a lot of you know her or have seen her, but she is not a bodybuilder.
No.
Meaning, 5 years of heavy lifting that completely reset her metabolism did not result in bulk.
No.
Not
it's so hard
veiny, big, ripped coming out of her shirt. Kind of, it's not that, because I know that's, especially for women, that can be a fear.
Sure.
And we talk about it a lot, but I thought it was worth mentioning now, even that it's just not a thing unless you work your ass off to get to that bulkiness, you know, and honestly take steroids.
Right.
But it's just not a thing.
No, it's not.
The other thing that's pretty amazing about your entire story and where you are now is your relationship with food now.
Yeah, my relationship, I think this, you know, I don't want to say that my weirdness isn't totally gone because I'd be lying. But for the most part, I think it was like 6 months ago, I like had this epiphany of like, oh my gosh, I can just like, so what the other thing that happened in this is like my body chemistry shifted and I can't remember, it's like leptin and another part of your whatever. I don't get hunger signals now. Okay. I get satiation signals, but I don't get hunger signals. I I know that I'm hungry if I'm getting a headache or lightheaded. My stomach that's gone. I don't know if it'll ever return. So I have to be, you know, I have to be careful with that. Um, but for the most part, I'm about 80%. I have a much better relationship with food. However, I will not track my macros or my calories because I know my history. I know that I could switch over to that super driven person very easily. And that's the other reason why I don't weigh myself. I do on occasion, I do, but it's such a trigger for me because in my head, I just want to be like 120 pounds.
Mhm.
I want to be 120 pounds. And that's not healthy that's when I lose my period, is when I'm 120 pounds. And there's still a little part of me that's like, big deal. If I'm being really honest, like, big deal. Who cares? And that's just part of who I am now.
Mhm.
It's my makeup. So I want to talk a little bit about metabolism and what muscle does to the metabolism. It's a metabolically active tissue and it requires more calories to maintain at rest. So when you're just chilling on your couch, in order to keep that muscle on your body, you require more calories, right? So that's helpful for someone who wasn't allowed to eat more than 800 to about to 1200 in different areas of my life calories without gaining weight. So it results in a higher basal metabolic rate, so a speedier metabolism. The act of building muscle sends signals to the body to speed up the metabolic process rather than conserve energy, right? So I was constantly in a conserve energy, we're in a famine, conserve energy, we're in a famine. And the only thing that actually healed my metabolism was lifting weights. That's it. You're just nodding. Do you have any questions at all?
No, I wasn't sure if you were done.
Yeah, I'm done.
I don't have any questions. I
Okay.
think it's it's a great story for hopefully for people to be able to listen to and reflect on and not take 35 years
Yeah.
to get to that point and realize, this is why we talk about the stuff that we talk about all the time, because it's kind of a cliche, but it really is lived experience.
Yeah.
And so it's important for you all to hear what the totality of that lived experience and why we're such advocates for resistance training.
Yeah, this is why I'm so passionate, guys. I haven't done the math, but I have lost and gained like 600 pounds in my lifetime. And I know the toll that it's taken on my body and on my psychology. Like, even to this day, I am so critical, especially being a personal trainer and owning a gym and being a content creator that's around gym. I'm like, well, Jonna, you don't have a six pack and your muscles aren't popping and you are not at a 11% body fat. And so what gives you, this is the voice that, you know, every once in a while likes to chat with me. What gives you the right to have any kind of authority? This is what gives me the fucking right. Because I know how to lose fat. I also know how to fucking gain it. So at the end of the day, strong is better than skinny. And you just heard all of the reasons why. If you want to screw yourself for a long time, then feed into the skinny talk, AKA anorexia. Feed into it. But guess what? At the end of the day, you're going to circle back around to resistance training because that's the only shit that's going to get you out of the dumpster fire, the metabolic dumpster fire that you're going to be in. So that's the message. That's why I'm a personal trainer. That's why I love working with women who have done this same shit. That's why I created Rebuild, right? The program that I've created for these specific women, because you're still hearing from social media content creators saying it's not your metabolism. It's because you eat too much. Well, guess what, buddy or 20-year-old? Yes, it is. It is. It's 35 years of yo-yo dieting, of anorexia that has put you in this position. And so, because I remember hearing people say, no, your metabolism isn't broken. Your metabolism isn't broken. Well, it actually was. And the only thing that healed it was resistance training. So anyway, I am hoping that this story helps you understand me and my passion more, but also helps you, the listener. Like, if you've been yo-yo dieting your entire life and you're having these exact same problems, the only way to fix it is to resistance train. And again, I didn't jump in going once a week just to patty cake around it. I was all in because it was the only thing left on the table. So I dove in deep and have stayed there. There was a brief stint last year that I took a break and only trained twice a week because you guys know, if you listen to the podcast, I was going through a bunch of emotional stuff and I had to deal with that. But for the most part, I've been training 3 to 5, 6 days a week, you know, for the last 5 years. Yeah.
Well, I will speak for all of the listeners when I say thank you for sharing. I know it's not easy. I mean, that was quite a journey.
Yeah, no.
And to relive it all, you know, in one podcast, I know is not easy, but very much appreciated. Because, like I said, hopefully people can learn from it that aren't, well, wherever they are.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, really wherever they are.
And there's a lot of, you're right, this has been very hard. There's a lot of shame attached to it. And it really triggered that memory of when I had to first share my before and after photos and I had a mental breakdown. And it was like, no, this is what you do for a living, Johnny. You have to show the before and after. And I'm like, I'm going to have a nervous breakdown. I can't do that. And there's been growth from that. So I get it. And yeah, thank you so much for listening, everyone.
Yeah. And I'll just reiterate, if this helped you, or if it resonates, let us know. You know, we love to hear from you. Or if you think somebody else might benefit from it, because, you know, somebody might be in that cycle that Jonna was in and not even realize it.
Yeah.
You know, just think, hey, I'm doing my best.
Yeah.
I'm doing something, and not even realize that what they're doing may actually be causing harm.
Yeah,
So,
I didn't think I was causing harm. I mean, I knew I was when I was 15, but any other time I didn't know.
Yeah. So
yeah. So be a friend and share.
yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much for listening.